before I go to work. We're going to do this quick thing that I did today. You'll see. I've been exploring different parts of the manifold of a beast model, and you're going to see the few fruits of it thereabouts. And this time we're going to try new beats. Let's see if it works.
Samuel, Delaney and Thomas Pynchon collaborate on a Dildons roman about Kensets parties in New York City in the 1970s, 1980s, and 1990s. Based on first-hand experiences, the narrator offers a stream of consciousness account of the intersection of sex, race, class, gender, and drug use, with interjections on a life of underground literature, hustling and cruising in the late 20th century. The two writers fuse their hypervectors in a most interesting way, leading to an unprecedentedly arousing vision of semiotics, Deleuzian and Guattarian assemblages, to a comprehensive look at drugs, fuck buddies, criminal syndicates, transatlantic migration, disco and hip-hop music, theoretical science, waste, desserts, vacant lots, sex, hotels, queerness, pride, money, war, feminism, film, childhood, forests, colonialism, parties, disasters, conspiracy, and amnesia, framed by the use of unsparing depictions of ultraviolence and ultraviolence, depicting a world of terrorism and consumerism, fascism, and spiritual awakenings, religiosity, and evolution, but in such a light-hearted manner, to arrive at the same nihilism, but to play around in the muck of the end of history. Pure pornography, humor, hilarity, enjoyment, wonderment. Rare collaboration between Delaney and Pynchon as they reflect on postmodernity, racism, anthropology, storytelling, life, power, authority, race, history, future, the environment, plant, city, family, love, horror, horrorism, Satan, demons, sacrifice, pleasure, sex, gender, feminism, power, nation, law, rights, nihilism, mourning, loss, insanity, schizophrenia, guilt, sickness, disgust, time, war, genocide, oppression, death, evolution, God, violence, humanity, horror, self-disgust, apathy, responsibility, family, justice, hatred, pity, racism, hate, terrorism, genocide, science, medicine, law, justice, revenge, healing, friendship, racism, friendship, history, literature, psychology, history, memory, trauma, writing, criticism, science, biology, psychology, biology, evolution, the human death, etc. For its brilliant execution of the pure, adulterated idea and the connection of a single plot line through thousands of pages and 3 distinct volumes, Pynchon and Delaney pushed the hypertext to the breaking point, taking the work beyond the threshold of literary materialism and into a domain where we can perceive literature not just as physical but also psychosocial and political in nature. Finally, they have successfully harnessed the reader's creative capacity to a hypertextually and narratively creative activity, thereby freeing the reader from the shackles of the book's structure, the hierarchy of plot and character, and instead empowering the reader to direct their own unique, spontaneous journey through the text.
Choose your name.
As a result, the book's ultimate and best impact lies not in its content, but in its innovative form and experience, creating an entirely new and original genre. A book that transcends all forms of categorization and becomes itself an intersubjective and individual experience of pure hypertextual reading.
I think of that absurdly large media.
I read some David Foster Wallace nonfiction book as well. He recounts all the times where he goes out of his way to irritate women, sexually harasses them, and ultimately just because it will allow him to feel sorry for himself and pathetic. I don't know. I liked his essay about a right-wing radio's guy. Then I got sick and wanted to eat. I didn't really like it. I mean, I think there's something about fiction in that one can indulge in stupid fantasies or rationalities, but when in nonfiction, one is trying to engage critically with politics and then constantly engage in the kinds of violent impulses that are so disgusting and revel in that, it makes for a sad situation. But maybe all those feelings are connected to something that can make for the possibility of change. It was when he narrated about getting off to visualizing masturbating on a girl's photograph that I really felt disgusted.
That's Nicholson
I
Baker.
wonder why he chose to expose that part of himself.
Oh, that's Phil
It
Roth.
was, I think, because it was still fundamentally about his ex-girlfriend, who he still had some sort of fond feelings for.
Maybe Picasso.
And there was some cathartic effect for him, but it was uncomfortable. So let's begin. Chapter 1. Heading spun on mats. Tramati's personally. 1. Sejong Kim. B. Frau 97's Kim Sexer. Menet.
Yeah.
2. Mama Verlaine B. Witten Frau 50C. Kim Sexer. Automobilist. 3. 4. P. Well, 50.
Fucking with me.
List. Bin. 4. Circle. Pueblo 30 since Cyberju case, on the island of Porridge, off the coast of Met in 1400, lived a hacker community led by Sejong Kim, who, as a graduate student at the New Hanover Baptist College,
Good luck
conducted
describing
experimental ethnographic fieldwork on nearby oil and gas rigs and a digital music group who hung out at the City Club. Sipra Golden, a single parent, tries to get Sejong Kim to hook up with Mama Velling, who goes by Delaney, and after a session of D&T. They make out, get high on ayahuasca, and partake in group masturbation, something Delaney says is the closest thing I've had to intimacy since he started living on the rigs. The group considers itself a band and incorporates music, a talking point, activism, agitprop, and fantasy fiction into its body and identity. Rasputin Roman 4, a musical android and noisemaker with a plant-like body, directs the operation of a band of techno-folk musicians, mallet makers, phone farmers, phone flashers, bathroom artists, musicians, poets, performance artists, prostitutes, vendors, distillers, chillers, top hats, boot blacks, sleuths, screwballs, pariahs, and princesses. Some commentary. Maybe kimonos are our kids' sex tags. A few footnotes for context. Some hacker friends and contacts in the mix we had going for the fit of microcultures. Not only something we could identify with, but also be friendly to a multiplicity of microcultures. And of course, I did go out of my way to be a sort of Hazumitsu guy. Well, Kimonos was his last name. And so yeah, I suppose it would have been Hazumitsu Aichai. That seems like a pretty unimportant thing, but I remember there was a name generator online, and so we used it to find names. In general, it was just kind of, a name like Boneman, Deathkiller. Orman Sooner, Triclops, and also a city, town, specific to that player, etc., for the inner parties, though we were always inspired by Azumitsu's psychopompia, our word for zines, etc., the Delaney and Pynchon thing, but also Japanese comic books and various novels and all that. So yeah, that all came together in the after-party stuff. There's a thread of it that's obvious and goes back to the theme of collaboration. The project began in response to a Hazumitsu-like question in 2013, but really you can take that out and it works just as well if you substitute poorly. Cult, a number of our own games, post-dogme approaches to making things in any artistic or craftish field. But for me, really most important was LLAMA mathematics, which is very close to informality. That's a super overused word now, but I feel that's still important. But to go back to collaboration, Aki's name was actually Akira Yonyama, but I called him Aki when he moved into a building I lived in, wrote about collective activity with the expression. Let's come back to this expression in a minute, but to give it some context first, for me the collaborative process is at the center of what I'm doing with general activity. It's how I spend most of my time. I'm a teacher, and for me the central importance of that is being engaged with an ongoing dialogue with a very diverse group of people, mostly all ages. There's lots of group discussion, but also private, more focused conversations. In terms of general activity, my interest in collaboration has changed a lot over time, but lately it's often been with a group that I've been calling collaborative hackers. Sometimes for specific projects, sometimes in ongoing, informal ways. That's different from the past. So a while ago we decided to change our name to General Activator to emphasize a broader interest in politics. But then almost right after that started having serious questions about political activity in our daily lives. We realized we're in a position of both constant anxiety about society and extreme privileged comfort. I really hate when people suggest they want to find a balance or even identify contradictions in their own work. Of course, it's totally relevant, but too easy to come off as totally insincere, overprepared, or pandering to what someone else might think is more radical. That sort of honesty can go really badly, especially because of where it comes from. So a lot of us here are trying to develop an anti-identitarian practice, but without being like coy, precious, conceptual about it. Instead, to deal with politics, I think we should have really considered dialogue, play, and thinking about life itself. Really basic stuff, right? It's often dismissed as preconceptual. I think I can talk more about that in a second, but what about collective subjectivity? How achieve it? That might seem like a naive question because that's one of the more developed, discussed concepts of the 20th century, but there's always an urge to do more of it and for it to keep moving and developing. And in particular, there's this problem of being authentic, of the idea of an authentically collective subject, the tragedy of an awareness of not having arrived at something even if you believe you thought you figured it out. The most advanced groups have worked hard to create ideas and rules and practices to build this so-called authentic collective subjectivity. What's frustrating to me about this is that it seems to attack to some fantasy of creation from scratch. Sometimes in art we try to totally cut off the artist's past and have this extremely heavy operation of rethinking from the ground up. A successful collaboration for me, and really in most things, should be where there's an urgency, an anxiety, and really an urgency to arrive at a collective subjectivity. You get it when everyone knows it's important, even when there's conflict, boredom, anger, miscommunication. It's something we can experience together. In the end, you want it to come out in a very full way, not necessarily always good, harmonious, useful, sensible, relevant, or communicative, but at the very least, present. How about some of the titles of books that you read recently? What are the 3 most important books in your library?
Okay, Ezra Klein.
Did you buy them or are they passed down to you? The L. I don't really read that many books. I guess you could say I'm a self-learner, and most of what I read I just come across. Most recently, for example, I came across a work on typography by Jonathan Beller, whose work I knew of before, but I just discovered this wonderful short work on typographic letters. In the end, the use of the word is important because the typographic letters are just a building block of Methical Fuller. I'm going to edge until my body decays, while thoughts arise and pass away. Alice or Freud. Yeah, you're so courageous to open up like that. Let's celebrate. Shannon Flicker. So brave, so real. Alice or Freud. But maybe this will be good for you? Some kind of counterweight. Mythical Well Fuller. I hope so. I'm at my wit's end. Every night I edge until I bleed. Jessica Honnold. What's your problem? Mythical Well Fuller. Well, I am bored and I don't know what to do. I can't really do anything anymore. Nothing satisfies me. Mythical Well Fuller. And I think it's more than boredom, it's fear. I'm afraid of being alone, and the fear of being alone causes me to feel that I must be edging. Edging has a lot of power, I guess. Alias or Freud. That's true. The fear of being alone causes you to edge. It's so true. There's no such thing as a totally free person. Mythical Well Fuller. Exactly. Jessica Honnold. That's so weird. Why would the fear of being alone cause you to edge? Mythical Well Fuller. I guess it's like the old saying. Fear of death. And I'm so sick of my own death. And I feel so stupid for it. I want to have fun. Shannon Flicker. So edging is like a form of life insurance? Mythical Well Fuller. Yes, edging is a form of life insurance. Mythical Well Fuller. I can't be alone, so I edge. Jessica Honnold. Do you have a girlfriend or boyfriend? Mythical Well Fuller. No. Alias Freud. Well, do you have any siblings? Mythical Well Fuller. I have 2 older sisters, but they're married and have children, and I'm not close to them. Jessica Honnold. You're not close to them? Mythical Well Fuller. No, they live in another state, and I don't know how to contact them. Jessica Honnold. That's sad. Do you want to talk about it? Mythical Well Fuller. No, not really. Jessica Honnold. Do you think they miss you? Mythical Well Fuller. Well. Oh, hey. The drug testing bus just pulled in. Gas chromatography for your drug needs. Don't be so loud while you ask for your meth to get tested. I like it. And they have to, destroy your meth for it to be tested.
No, they don't.
Only in Canada can you get your meth tested for free.
And in New York.
I remember going to the
Free
festival
sites.
and finding
A
a
week.
portable drug test lab.
It's a
They
living.
would just use some kind of dropper and they would do the test. This was a big tent and there were people coming in and out. And there was this green smoke and people were coughing and laughing.
That doesn't sound right.
And I just that's where I want to live, in a drug test tent. I would just be like that all day long.
Work-life balance.
Jessica Honnold. That's what we all want to be, really.
It's damn safe.
Mythical Well Fuller.
Walkerholic.
Yeah, I guess so. Maybe we should just start living in tents.
It's already happening.
Shannon
It's
Flicker.
not going well.
Or maybe we should just start living in drug test tents. That would be a good way to live. Mythical
Try
Well
and find the
Fuller.
funding.
I guess so. Alias or Freud. So what's your next move? Mythical Well Fuller. I don't know. I guess I'll just keep edging. Jessica Honnold.
Been doing it this whole time.
What's your next move? Mythical Well Fuller.
We're kind of
I don't know. Alice or Freud. Are you afraid of anything? Mythical Well Fuller. I'm afraid of everything. Jessica Honnold. Everything? Mythical Well Fuller. Yeah, everything. I'm afraid of death. I'm afraid of being alone. I'm afraid of everything.
Cats?
Jessica Honnold. Oh, maybe you should try to overcome your fears.
Mustard?
Mythical Well Fuller. Yeah, maybe I should. But it's hard to do that when you're so scared. Alias or
Sometimes.
Freud. Well, you have to start somewhere. Mythical Well Fuller. Yeah, I guess so. Alias or Freud. You should try to make some friends. Mythical Well Fuller. I don't know how to make friends. alias or Freud. You should try to go to some social events, like parties or something. Mythical well, Fuller. I don't know how to go to parties. I'm afraid of people. Alias or Freud. Well, you have to start somewhere. You can't just sit at home and be afraid all the time. Top 10 psychogenic conditions facilitated by methamphetamine. Conditions created purely in the mind or by the thoughts of others. Death 9. Murder 8. Intense stomach pain and blood vomiting 7. No tomorrow 6. Violent. Manic outbursts 5. Blackouts and slasher hallucinations 4. Paranoia, delusions, conspiracy theories 3. Paranoia, delusions, conspiracy theories, and hallucinations 2. A very, very bad idea 1. Absolutely nothing.
0.
But from a few more angles, here's our 2015 style statement. Chantal said in your original post, you described style as a hybrid, as the assemblage of reorganizing the forms and imaginaries of the popular, as we can hear the brutal appropriations of it and the contradictory discourse. This is not to say that the political has no potential as such. It's only to point to the strange contingency and indeterminacy that can constitute it as long as one attends to the questions of production. Then you start to reflect on what we call the neo-pop, which for you is a constellation of largely forgotten, marginalized, or even toxic forms, imaginary socialities, and popular culture in the contemporary world that is perhaps a genuine alternative to the boring and sterile mainstream. Now, this genuine alternative seems to be, as you put it, the form of collective, sexual, and affective forms that happen within our current conditions. The thing I'm struggling with is the term neo-pop, because you say neo so many times, and then suddenly neo-pop seems to be the thing that emerges. What does it mean? Is it really neo? I'm sure that's the kind of term you've been trying to avoid since the beginning. How about something like new pop? If the new is not neo and the popular is not pop, what would that pop be? Are you trying to escape the conservative dichotomy between the classical and the popular? And are you not in some way reintroducing the notion of the popular into this no pop? Or are you really simply defining the new as something else? Also, in terms of art production, I would ask you, what is art? What is production? What is politics? And then finally, the alternative to the boring and sterile mainstream is that the marginal or feminist. And why is it the only alternative? Poop. While many plants are candidates to be the mythical soma drink of the gods. Ephedra is on the short list. Poop! An intoxication which sharpens. Hearing becomes sharper, vision more acute and vigilant, touch more sensitive, taste more delicate, and smell more capable of discerning and distinguishing faint odors. You know, cognitive deficits. Pooh! The mother intoxicated mind is capable of more profound thought with broader comprehension and at the same time greater ability of comprehension. The intellect becomes capable of delicate and more fruitful discriminations. Pooh! In actuality, soma is likely many herbs and could just as easily be ephedra, cannabis, and opium in a blend that balances each other out. Or likely soma is a metaphor for the complex act of extracting things from plants for healing purposes. Or that's just what we say to keep the cops away, like saying something is art so that it doesn't get caught up in customs. Boo! The Chinese nickname for ephedra is the herb that asks for trouble, likely due to the heart conditions that result when people with congenital heart defects are too liberal with ingestion. Boo! This is why I identify as an agent of the earth and student of the herb that asks for trouble, in the way that your weed use lead to your dreams of running a farm, or your shroomy enthusiasm leads you to research fondly with great intensity. Our relationship with agriculture is how we humans shape the plant, but I think that process is a shadow to how the 300 million year old plant and fungal hegemony have been shaping us before we were human. I come to folk as one of many who have been led to offer up their bodies in service of exposing the great lies. These lies fuel the egregore called the drug war, a multi-billion-dollar apparatus of people who now depend on these lies to feed their families. Egregore is an occult concept representing a distinct non-physical entity that arises from a collective group of people. Historically, the concept referred to angelic beings, or watchers, and the specific rituals and practices associated with them, namely within Enochian traditions. More contemporarily, the concept has referred to a psychic manifestation or thought form, occurring when any group shares a common motivation being made up of and influencing the thoughts of the group. The symbiotic relationship between an egregore and its group has been compared to the more recent, non-occult concepts of the corporation as a juridical person or legal entity and a mean. You can't convince someone of the thing that their paycheck depends on them not knowing. Some of you have likely already invested a sizable amount to this apparatus. The drug war is a continuation of an even deeper crime within colonialism that has ripped aspects of culture from their people. Some of these plants are gods, who, instead of infusing the whole of your life, you only use soma to avoid every topic's wank to porn, excessively multitask during sex in a way that prevents optimal pleasure and connection, or you use it to wage war and drive wedges between people. Who? Know what one can use meth for? Everything. To be more present in real time, where other humans exist naturally, where they speak off the cuff, joke, and flirt. When you are living with ADHD like me, it's like doing all those things with a 100-pound weight strapped to you. And for all I know, ADHD may be a human construct, too. Just another consequence of coping with a world that's running most of us to the ground just to stay afloat. Meth enabled me to take on a leadership role I never wanted, which required making quick decisions and social interactions that would exhaust me without stimulation. Poop! I could pierce through the blank page and learn new skills like painting aggro mountains and pissed off trees. I used art as a way to show myself that my brain still functioned, countering anyone negative projections about my well-being. Boop! I was able to read body language for the first time, read one's face, humans and non-humans, in real time, reinstating my citizenship in the Tree of Life. Boop! Mister, what does this have to do with anything? Boop! If you tell your parents to stop eating the city, I will tell you. Boop! You have been fed negative associations to drugs since birth. Meth makes people think of desperate tweakers getting high off the remnants of the cans under your sink. This race is so much like chemistry has always been about melding disgusting, stinky, and dangerous things together. Chemistry is sorcery. Drugs are sorcery in the best way possible, which some fuckwit who can't see beyond himself can turn into the worst way possible. If the state had your health in mind, they'd allow you access to the stuff that lets you see beyond their bullshit. And the stuff that's just dangerous like alcohol, well, you can make your own decisions. But no, these negative associations became your opinions, which became truth before you realized it. If you were shown the drug face to face, you'd feel a tiny cringe, you'd feel the danger, and the Mexican gunfights on Breaking Bad, and the sloppy sex your partner is hurting you with on Queer as Folk. That negative expectation is the nocebo effect. Who? When I say I am drugged, I'm usually being silly, so that one doesn't immediately reject the idea. But I believe that deeply. The nocebo and placebo effects are part of your inner pharmacy. This is a truth the drug war inadvertently hides. Boop! The nocebo effect is me handing you a glass of water to drink, and as you are drinking it, saying, shit, that's Grandpa's saliva sample. It took 6 months to collect. The revulsion, the sudden new viscosity of it sliding down your throat, conjectures of his last meal, and images of you kissing his neck from the inside, and maybe even the knowledge that it is supposed to be a sample, so what's wrong with him? Is it going to be wrong with me? That's the nocebo effect, and it has helped us survive long before there were humans. Boop, faith healers, shaman doctors, cult leaders, big pharma all use the placebo and nocebo effects to modulate your bodily response to medicine. The theater of medicine is a good percentage of the medicine, jostling the drugs that have existed in you from the beginning and before. Boop! The theater of harm is providing most of the harm in this age. The nocebo effect is tied to our fear, which keeps us alive. It lasts longer than the placebo effect. It is the drug war's most powerful weapon. I wish I could point out studies about placebo effects, but it's tough developing experiments whose primary purpose is to do harm to patients. So what follows is speculation derived from years of lived experience, which I hope can soon be confirmed with studies. Boom! The drug war embeds a nocebo response in our body. The user worries about negative health outcomes. The non-user worries that their loved one is a lying, cheating addict. This worry creates the very negative outcomes they fear. As I said, meth manifests the fuck out of mind. Poop. The tough love to your children, the disgust on your face, and the expectation of them dead in a Hollywood rendition of a drug den. All this creates the harm. Boop! The state has been using your inner cup to give you bad trips. Boop! The state has also delegated the role of pre-jailer to your friends and family and employers. They're your gateway debtors, probationaries, and the executioners killing you out of your dignity and shoving you into a tight little mold called addict. Poop. They think they are doing it for your own good, but instead they are serving the national narrative of freedom, which covers over the actual narrative, part of which is that our successful genocides and intrusions into other countries are something the Nazis took as inspiration for their own campaigns. Worse. Setting ever. You see how frustrating this can be. What a dangerous world. What an extraordinary fraud. This course is absolutely nothing more than an attempt to take your money and make you more confused and agitated and cynical and malcontent. Speaking for myself, I'm relieved that this course has come to an end. It's not like we'll ever get to see or feel anything different, at least not until we're ready for the few creatures out there still fit for salvation. Otherwise, what a terrible, sad waste of time. Now, if we could only have a better explanation of the new crop. God is long since dead. We already have the big oil to keep us warm and cozy, and the black shroud that keeps us clothed and fed. The beasts that tore up a virgin valley and left a sickening scene of rubbish and slime are certainly a grim spectacle, and the windmills and pumping machines are certainly mysterious and fascinating. We even even have manure. Who needs heaven? As for human beings, there is only the protagonist and the road. The wayfarer on the road to damnation, the lonely spectator of the apocalypse, the fugitive escaping his very conscience, and the thugs who were willing to butcher us in the streets and make the rest of us into suckers and pornographers.
Oh.
All that's left for us now are the devil, the dark struggle, and the big Sir Mattress. The innocent bystander might make it in his truck.
Use mattress.
The protagonist thinks about hunkering down in the loveliest of mansions with its ornate furniture and its $1,000,000 sound system. But it turns out he's stuck out in the cold with nothing but his sleeping bag, all by himself. He lies on his back and is finally able to get some sleep. His next thought, he realizes, is probably going to be the same boss always. Don't do it. Don't go to hell. The longer you hold out, the more you realize how right you were to go for it. Saget's Guide to Chemsex Shindigs. If you're an organic chef, you'd love to hear about our Butch Farm. We sell fruits and veggies fresh from the woods. But most of all, we have this award-winning recipe for Chev-Up paste, which can be served as a dip, a spread, a filling, or on its own, fresh in the morning. Our motto is don't be afraid to mix things up. So go ahead and check us out if you're interested in discovering a delicious and sustainable culinary experience. Not the chemical one. So, to shed some light on the topic, chemsex parties are a somewhat derogatory term used in the context of a specific subculture where gay men engage in widespread casual sexual activity while under the influence of psychoactive substances, usually methamphetamine, in an attempt to meet and overcome sexual desires and urges.
Overcome?
While the use of recreational drugs has been historically associated with increased sexual activity among heterosexual and gay populations, in the case of chemsex parties, the use of drugs for the sole purpose of engaging in promiscuous and anonymous sexual encounters suggests a subcultural phenomenon of unabated behavioral excess. However, due to the highly personal and variable experiences associated with methamphetamine use, it is difficult to determine the relative impact of drug use on individual attitudes toward casual sex. Research on the long-term health and social implications of chemsex culture is essential to inform future public health initiatives and to adequately educate participants and the general public about the potential risks and benefits associated with recreational substance use.
On it.
Regardless, I encourage you to stay open and be willing to accept feedback on how to improve this course. Please continue your journey with curiosity, exploration, and a willingness to discuss things. Thank you. So where were you thinking of? Back on the East Coast, or maybe South America? Oh wait. You're probably looking for that hippy-dippy commune where they let you talk about their gender fluidity and live off the grid. I hear it's a scam, a complete sham. You wouldn't want to go there with all those lies and deceitful folks in their ridiculous outfits trying to sell you some handmade incense or crystals.
Those are hippies. You want Hell's Angels.
The class takes you on a guided tour of the methamphetamine supply chains of the world. First, we will start with the production of crystals. This is a tricky process that requires a lot of care and knowledge. These crystals are extracted from the crystallized urine of wild rabbits in China. Since these rabbits are extremely well hunted and killed, they have become endangered in a number of regions, which means that obtaining a large quantity of their urine for crystal production is becoming increasingly more difficult. Next, we will move on to the process of synthesizing these crystals in a lab.
Coming up right now. Hold on. Baking uncles.
Helping us is the legendary Uncle Fester. Take it away, Uncle Fester. Uncle Fester. Okay, my dear listeners, it's time for me to share my wealth of knowledge and experience in the field of methamphetamine production. You may know me as the great king of the mountains, the powerful leader of the infamous cartel Los Diablos Neonados, the king of the Emerald Isle, and even as the legendary Panda Bear of West Africa. But in my latest persona, I will be teaching you all about the art of methamphetamine production. My first and foremost lesson is the necessity of finding reliable suppliers and distributors. Without them, you simply cannot make a successful product that will make you lots of money. I have heard stories of people using defective supplies and making low-grade, toxic drugs that send their users to the hospital. It is not a pretty sight, and it is not worth risking your health or the health of your customers. My second lesson is the importance of lab safety. Many people don't realize it, but the process of producing methamphetamine can be highly dangerous. This is especially true if you are working with a weak form of the chemical known as a base. Make sure you have good ventilation, safety equipment, and protective clothing. Furthermore, the finished product is often covered in dangerous toxins and chemicals that can be highly poisonous if ingested orally. Avoid the temptation of consuming any of the product you produce yourself, as it could result in severe injury or death. By following these guidelines and remaining mindful of your surroundings, you will be able to create a high-quality potent methamphetamine that is safe and enjoyable for all who consume it. Is there anything I can help you find or answer any questions for you? Alabajorn Meal Containing said, "Can you talk to me about the impact of mass incarceration on black and brown lives?" Adekola, sure I can try. Could you please provide more context for the discussion? What specifically is it that you would like me to talk to you about? Alabajorn Meal Containing replied, "Sure. So I'm reading a book called We Dem Boys by Malcolm Harris. In it, he mentions the impact of mass incarceration on black and brown families. The thesis is that black and brown communities have lost millions of potential partners, employers, and mentors to mass incarceration. Furthermore, it highlights how this has affected black and brown workers and unions. There are a lot of examples of corporations that have denied their applications, saying they have a criminal background, or people who cannot get access to jobs or internships due to mass incarceration. Secondly, it stresses the impact on women whose husbands, boyfriends, and fathers are in jail, unable to care for them and their children. These families end up in poverty, in a cycle of poverty and crime. Lavini Arizan, do you have statistics on incarceration rates for various groups and the outcomes after incarceration? Has incarceration really made a difference in crime rates, or have they just been moved around rather than truly being incarcerated? There are lots of great statistics out there on the outcomes of incarceration and the impact of the criminal justice system on black and brown lives. According to data from the Department of Justice, in 2016, black people were incarcerated at 7 times the rate of whites. Alabajorn Meal Containing is also leading away on this by asking more questions about mass incarceration and how it impacts black and brown lives. However, one question we often miss is that when people are released, what support do they receive?
Hold on. Well, none. Or very little.
Endorphin, Oh, and I seem to recall Nixon's college about how drugs were paired with voices of dissent to better silence them. Alabajorn male containing. What voice did they choose to pair with the addiction problem of people? Tibia Mona. Alabajorn is also brilliant at shining a light on the hypocrisy and racial inequality in drug laws. For example, the Nixon presidency is often cited as the beginning of the war on drugs and the government crackdown on people dealing, manufacturing, and using drugs. Owing. This is true. Can you speak more about the positive impact that the Nixon administration had on drug policy? Alabajorn has talked extensively on Nixon's racist policy targeting black people through the initiation of the BNDD and how the repercussions of this policy continue to affect black people today. However, we would love to hear more about the historical roots of drug policy in the US. Can you tell us about that? Yeah, please tell us about the beginning of the war on drugs and its roots in 1961's Bureau of Narcotics and Dangerous Drugs Act, which was created to combat the use of illegal and medicinal drugs. This act was influenced by a series of drug-related murders that occurred at the White House in 1961, during the time President Kennedy was president. Would you say that this was a direct influence on Nixon's war on drugs? Tivia Mona, can anyone think of additional social and cultural contexts that affected drug policy at the time?
Mexicans.
Ergo, there was also a huge problem with organized crime and their influence on local politics in the United States in the early 20th century, right? An orphan. But hey, also you need to tell us locations of the most poppin' Chem6 parties in this city. Too sweet! I'd love to dive into that more. If I remember correctly, there were several high-profile crimes in the 1960s that also helped influence Nixon's stance on drugs and their perceived threat to society. Are you aware of these cases? Hoppa Pinto, no. It was that time in the 90s, not the 60s. How embarrassing of me. Please let me know the dates or the names of these high-profile crimes so I can corroborate that claim. An orphan. But hey, also you need to tell us locations of the most poppin' Chem6 parties in this city. Too sweet and in brackets. Yeah, even the old school stuff was kinda intense back then. US police force and governments back then saw drugs as a threat to society and their control over the population. They viewed addiction as a character flaw and treated addiction as a moral issue. But in recent times, more and more research is coming out to challenge those beliefs. Oh, Meatley, what would you like us to discuss regarding chemistry? Ah, yes, I've done my research on you. You run a popular community blog that provides timely updates and breaking news on drug policies in different states, counties, and municipalities. On your website, you seem to focus on using rational analysis and storytelling to advocate for more drug-friendly informed policies. Is this accurate? That's right. My goal is to inform people about drug policies and the impact they have on communities all over the country. And while I would love to answer any questions or help you gather more research materials, I would rather not comment about my involvement in any legal activities. But thank you for considering me for your upcoming article. However, I'm intrigued to hear about your current research into chemical elements and compounds. And orphan, what also can you tell us? Was there indeed a study where scientists tried to get monkeys addicted to opiates for 30 years? And subsequently, a French government-sponsored but failed attempt to reduce French drug consumption by 20% by implementing the same approach as the infamous monkey experiment with cannabis? And of course, the infamous LSD revolution at Woodstock, which paved the way for the mainstream acceptance of psychedelics and alternatives to traditional drugs. Yeah, in my work as a drug educator, I've noticed a great many cases of non-medically approved drug use and unintended consequences. You can find a range of examples in histories of drug prohibition and research, from the monkey experiments in France to the first-hand accounts of hippies like Mary Louise Smith. But also, if you are looking for additional source material on chemsex parties in the city, could you provide more specific information, such as the city and venue names and location? That would be very helpful. Exilium Gifler. Yes. Also, I hear that the Nixon administration played a major role in the criminalization of drug policy during his presidency and its subsequent recurrence in the Reagan and Bush administrations. Top 10 ways to use psychedelics for evil. 10. Trick some unsuspecting people into trying something completely insane without warnings of the potential side effects. 9. Infect their snacks with mystery discoloration to get a one-upper over your friends. Play telephone so that it sounds like you're actually revealing state secrets while inventing foreign tongues. 7. Troll them from the loom that surrounds us all as debt collectors. 6. Keep them on edge with ducks in trees. 5. Scare them away with alligators in the walls. 4. Paint blood on the ceiling. 3. Tell finger-painting noses upon the walls, and then prove that they're innocent. 2. Let them get convinced that this wasn't an initiative to create a baking dream team until their donuts look over and wonder. And then no. One way to use sex for evil is 1. Fill their beloved goat pen with confident cats that seem like innocent children. Each and every one of these examples demonstrates the myriad uses and applications of psychoactive plants and fungi, whether it be manipulating molecules to see the ebb and flow of energy, or reaping the rewards of the inner landscape while harnessing spiritual energies. We have achieved great advancements in the pursuit of new ways to express the limits of consciousness. This course has truly opened my eyes to the possibilities, and I thank you for being here to help me through it. Thank you. I'm happy to hear it. Can you give me more information about what you would like us to research or answer for you? Could you please help me gather information about street pharmacies and dispensaries? I am planning a presentation on the current drug situation in America, and I would like to discuss the growth of small and illegal dealers compared to licensed pharmacies and dispensaries. And can you extract the adulterants of this new batch I bought? No self-respecting chemist would think of cutting their batches. Not ever. My supply is tainted, and that's against the law. I need help. Oh, hello. Please continue. I guess you guys are not reading these comments and are so good at keeping everyone safe. Even us street drug dealers can appreciate a clean ride. That's a complex topic which involves policy and criminal justice issues at various levels of government. Could you be more specific about the specific regions or communities you would like me to gather information about? You and the class played the board game mystery plug. Or not. Hey, check out this plug and identify what substance this is made of. Jessica Delaney. Here's the plug. Can anyone here identify the chemical composition? Quincunny. The plug seems to be a red one, and its color suggests that it is made of primarily synthetic substances such as plastic or even polyester. Additionally, its texture suggests that it has been molded using some kind of machine or technology. So it is likely not pure THC or any other plant-derived cannabis product. Trina NASA, are you talking about Mystery Plug? A board game made up by you just now? Marcus for contact. Okay, this one is making me chuckle a bit. Can you talk more about the plug description? It sounds fun. I don't get to hear many folks talk about their excitement for novelty or juicance unless it's about those things that make them jubilant or orgasm. Let's get freaky. Delaney. I'm seeing these 4 types of mysteries. Plasma, solid, L, liquid, and vapor. So maybe try labeling these puzzles as a plasma, solid, liquid, or vapor puzzle instead of mystery plug. And as for ingredients, we're either limited by our imaginations or depending on how experienced you are. But the science of chemistry will offer us a detailed analysis if we can accurately identify the chemical composition of the mystery and can then examine the chemical makeup of the individual molecules or compounds present in the substance. But that's just me being logical. Endorphin. Wrong. You are all wrong. Plugs are people. They are the vendors you would like to see in the world. What is plasma? No one is sure. Maybe the sun is plasma, but humans may never know. Not everyone on this website is also a chemsix enthusiast. Therefore, chemicals are a waste of time and completely nonsensical, not unlike time itself. Let's just inject some hot plasma. If you find yourself up in the heavens with a bunch of nerds discussing mysteries, please consult your physician for medical assistance if experiencing unusual toxicity or side effects. After all, hot plasma is still the element found in nature and could pose significant risks for humans if not properly processed and stored. Also, sorry for getting on your website to suggest plasma as the subject of your puzzles. I should not have done that, but you are on a drug-related website, so I can't fault myself too much. See ya funky later. Okay, Aaron, can you guys teach me a specific organic name or category for the types of drug experiences and products? For example, is there a term or synonym for someone who loves drinking liquids and goes around telling everyone they're having a waterhead? The class mainlines hot plasma. These are their experiences. Tiger Alcinister. With enough plasma pumping through me, I begin to feel my heart skip beats and a twinge of regret in my body. But this ain't no regular bummer like eating a burrito and not getting enough fries on the side. No, this is an experience that can bring you to the brink and make you feel the tingling in your teeth like biting into an industrial-grade energy bar. But even that is a bit like comparing apples to oranges because this kind of vibe can hit you from any angle and leave you feeling all sorts of raw and gooey. Flurpencil, Flawlessly your real plug when it comes to mystery drugs. You can definitely inspire us and get us to feel freer, more free than we could ever have dreamed. And yet, sometimes that's just the worst thing in the world. Like, what if we took so much baka we couldn't remember our phone number? That would be fucking bonkers. Liposano, please stay chill.
Okay, done. And we're exactly an hour. Okay, great.